Hi there, welcome to this week's Retro Rehearsal with, I believe my guest is Mary Beard. It was a really good fun one. I like it when we have non-comedians, though Mary is very funny, as well as being a classicist and archaeologist and all that sort of stuff as well. So look forward to that. You can help support me by either buying a badge at gofasterstrike.com/badges, or you could come and see me on tour. Here's where I'm coming up. It's Chris Evans, not that one, will put it running across here, I expect, or something. Thursday, 5th of March, I'm at Brighton Comedia. Looking down at my list. It's the, fuck, I've missed my place. There's no way of it. Can we edit this out, Terry? You're not so good at editing video. Okay, I'm sure you can work out how to do it. The Friday the 6th of March, I'm at Crawley at the Horth. 7th of March at the Maidenhead Northern Farm. 8th of March at Canterbury Gulbenkian. It's like I'm going to the venues with the stupidest possible names. 12th of March at Reading South Street, that has sold out. And 13th of March at Didcot Cornerstone Arts. Let's go on to 14th of March Winchester and 15th of March in Bristol. And then there's loads more coming up. Go to richardherring.com/LOTDS/tour to find out about those. I've also got another podcast called Lord of the Dance Settee. It's on iTunes and the British Comedy Guide. Comedy.com podcast. I don't know, I can't remember. And you can Google it. This week in Chorley, I had one of the most amusing hecklers and weird hecklers and earliest walkouts I've ever had, which turned out to be a man had brought a lady on a first date to see my show, and she had not approved of me mocking some childhood versions of hymns, and walked out in quite a lot of anger. So that will be part of episode 3 of Lord of the Dance Settee podcast, which is free up online. So don't complain about me pushing that. It's more free entertainment for you. As it is, look, come and enjoy Mary Beard on Leicester, as the cool kids are calling Leicester. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leicester Square Theatre. Here's a man who can make stars open up even better than Piers Morgan. It's Richard Herring. Thank you very much. Hello, Leicester Square Theatre. Hello, welcome to Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast. That's what the squares call it, or as all the cool kids are calling it, Leicester. Wow, it's a pretty exciting week for the podcast last week. Wasn't it? It was amazing. Did you listen to it? See, it was Stephen Fry was on, and the shocking admission that he'd never read The Hobbit. I mean, I haven't really been following the news, so I don't know if anything's... there's a man here, our nuclear physicist David, I think, is wearing an I Love London hat in... is a tribute to an audience member from the first half last week. It's going to be pretty extraordinary, everything that went on, getting on the news all around the world. I was up in Glasgow and doing a radio show, and I kind of came out and sort of saw Eamon Holmes talking about me and stuff. Well, not so much about me, but well, I'd like to thank everyone who came last week who didn't go and blab about it straight away. You could probably have made £200 selling that to the papers before it came out. So thank you for that, and no one even tweeted about it. So you're a fantastic audience. Thank you for that, and we'll see. It puts a bit of pressure on, though, doesn't it? How am I going to get in the news this week? I may have to kill somebody in the audience to get in this week. We'll just have a quick chat with the audience because we haven't done it. There's a lady here, which is quite a nice looking lady. Oh, there you go. What's your name?
Rosie.
Rosie. That was very posh.
Is it?
Yes, it was Rosie. Came out all rosy. What do you do for a living, Rosie?
I'm a management consultant.
You're a management consultant? It's very well spoken. It's very nice. It's just a way to perv on you and just film you. This isn't even for the show. I'm just going to take this home. Oh, no, you've spoiled it. Oh, that's put me right off my stroke. That's a way just to make it last a bit longer. Oh! What does it involve, management consulting? What does that involve?
Not a lot.
Not a lot?
Bullshitting.
Bullshitting? So you might not even be a management consultant. You're very good at it, though, so you should be. So, come on, that was worth more than that. I was coming back from Glasgow, and in the airport, I was looking at magazines. I was looking at a magazine because I knew there was an interview with Russell Brand, who's going to be on the show next week. It's very exciting. So I was looking for the magazine that's talking to him. But then I found a magazine there in Smith's at the airport called Railways and the Holocaust, which it's quite a specific Venn diagram, isn't it? Those two. Are you interested in railways? Yeah, I like railways. Do you like the Holocaust? I like the Holocaust too. We've got the magazine for you. It's Railways and the very specific readership. I'm hoping they'll bring out the speedboats and the civil war in Rwanda. That is what I'm hoping for. Or tuk-tuks and the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs. I think just two things. Even if you take it at face value, I think it's like Railways of the Holocaust, right? That's what they were probably aiming for with that type. But even that's quite an odd thing to do a magazine about. Specifically, I'm not interested in anything else in the Holocaust apart from the railways. I'm interested in what gauge trains took the people to the concentration camps. Who is this aimed at? It's an incredible... it's like kind of doing a magazine based on the bike that Lee Harvey Oswald cycled to the book depository. And the subtitle is The Trains That Shamed the World. Like it was the train's fault that this happened. Other trains were going, I'm embarrassed. Thomas the Tank Engine presumably going, I'm embarrassed about those trains. They should have refused to take those people. So I enjoyed that. So that's a real magazine. I should have bought a copy so I could have proven it to you and showed you. But that's just not the kind of guy I am. Oh, and I should remember, I just want to say thank you to Aaron Cleland, who I believe lives in Singapore, who has made a fantastically large donation to Scope. And if you do the same thing, I'll announce your name on a podcast as well. I was going to get Stephen Fry to say his name last week, which would have been much better, wouldn't it, than me just saying it now. But never mind. Look, we're going to crack straight on with the show. We've got 2 shows we're doing tonight. You at home will be watching. You can watch the second one a little bit later in the week if you're getting this straight away. So I'm very, very excited to have this guest. She's one of my favourite people on TV. Will you please welcome a woman who has been described as the best-known classicist in the country, given that she's the only one anyone has ever heard of. Will you please welcome Mary Beard, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mary Beard. She's straight in on the wine. Why not? Don't be intimidated by my Chortle Award, Mary. That is... No. I can't wait for John Lloyd to see my 2 awards. He's going to be shitting himself when it... That is a Sony Bronze Award. I've been carrying that around in my bag, the Sony Bronze Award. It started rubbing off. Can you see that? You can see the bronze. I thought that was made of real bronze. I thought that would last forever. That's going to be by the time. You see those big holes in it? Looks useless load of shit in it. So look, it's because you're a much more we've got an intellectual one. I think we should change the tone of the podcast. So I've got different questions for you. We're going to go quite historical, quite intellectual.
Oh, phew.
So my first question is: did Julius Caesar ever try to suck his own cock? It's an interesting. It is an interesting historical question.
All Romans did.
All Romans did?
Yeah.
How do you know? Have you got evidence?
Well, it's like the way, for women this is quite difficult. The equivalent for a woman is when they see their kid aged 18 months sucking its toe. Every mother in the country goes up to the bedroom, sits down and sees if they can still do it, right? And usually they can with child number 1. By child number 2 or 3, they've gone off a bit. And so my fantasy is, because it's one of the ways that you can take the Romans down a peg or two, you can kind of undress them, take their togas off, is that, of course, every Roman tried to suck their own cock. They're always talking about cock-sucking all over the place, so I expect they did.
Do you think that's why Julius Caesar said et tu, Brute? I think that's why he was going, et tu, Brute. I thought it was just me, but everyone's... they discovered Julius Caesar's skeleton, all bent round and stuff, because Richard III's was a bit, wasn't it? I think Richard III might have been having a crack at it. And
Mr. Herring.
Just as he was going.
I am going to be a pedant at this point and say Julius Caesar never said et tu, Brute. Shall I tell you what he said? Yeah,
do tell me. I know Natalie Haynes goes on about this all the time, but I can never remember.
She does. But she learnt it from me.
She did.
Literally. He says, Kai su, teknon, which is Greek for you too, my child. Oh. And it was always thought to be a very clever dying joke, because rumours had it that Brutus was the illegitimate son of Julius Caesar. So it's not just assassination, it was patricide.
Wow. So he's always thinking, that's what I'm kind of thinking when I'm doing comedy sometimes. I think if someone shoots me or something on stage and go, now that's a heckle, just as I'm dying, you kind of think you're prepared. You're sort of prepared. Caesar was prepared. He had a why was he speaking Greek if he was Roman? What was wrong with him?
He was showing off, I think.
Lucky someone understood and could write it down. It's always speaking Roman. That is my advice to you. So I've been to see the Pompeii exhibition at the British Museum, which is fantastic. Brilliant. It's about Herculaneum and life and death in Herculaneum and Pompeii, which you are a part. You're on the audio guide.
I'm on the audio guide talking about cocksucking.
You are, yeah. That's what I thought. You're a perfect guest to get in. Now, I think there's quite a few remarkable things on the exhibitions, but my favourite one that I enjoyed the most was the picture of it's a sculpture of Pan having sex with a goat. That's just there. If you can see it, this was discovered in a garden, I think, in Pompeii or Herculaneum.
A garden outside Herculaneum, and it alone is worth going to the... Yeah, that's right, get it. You
can see his actual cock going into the goat there.
Yes, you can.
That's the goat. It's Pan, who is half goat, so it's not as dirty as you think.
No, it's half goat shagging full goat.
Yeah,
it's
and
really
it's quite... I think it's quite tender that he's sort of holding on to the goat's beard as he's doing it, and that could be tender. It's hard to tell because it's not moving. You know, he could be tugging it hard. That is rude. If you're going to have sex with a goat, be tender. That is my advice. But what I enjoyed about this particularly was my wife and I were looking around this fantastic exhibition at the same time as a school party were going around, and these like basically 10-year-old boys, one of them saw this and then he couldn't believe what he had just seen. No. And like he thought he hadn't seen it, and then he called over his friend, who then walked over and was so terrified by what he knew what he was doing was wrong, and he kind of was almost backing away and all his friends were laughing at it. It was amazing.
It's the best advert for classics that there's been in this country.
What's going on with that? With Pan having sex with a goat in someone's garden?
Well, the British Museum clearly think there is a bit wrong because they have a little health warning. Did you notice the health warning which said...
I could only see the cock going into the goat's cloaca.
Had you looked more carefully, you would have seen that there was a notice outside saying some people might find this a little upsetting, and adults only and that kind of thing, which draws every kid to it, absolutely like, magnet. I think it's difficult because I think part of me wants to say, look, this jolly well is upsetting, isn't it? If anybody can go into an exhibition and look at a sculpture of Pan shagging a goat and say, oh, that was, it was all right, wasn't it? Nothing special there. They're kidding themselves. Yeah. Honestly, they're kidding themselves. But then you look at it again and you think, this was a really good ancient joke, wasn't it? Somebody, the sculptor, has sat down and said, right, how do we imagine? We know that Pan, the important thing about Pan in the ancient world is he'll shag anything. Mm-hmm. He'll shag slaves or trees or goats or anything. So trees, yes. Okay. If all living creatures are lacking, he'll do trees, anything. That's what you know about Pan. He is utterly voracious. So then you say, if you're this rather classy sculptor, and it is rather nice, it's very elegantly done, and you can still see the bits of paint on his beard, it's holding. You say, so how do we think Pan would have shagged a goat, right? And of course, we all know that, that goat shagging only happens from behind, that what this guy has done is shown Pan shagging the goat in a missionary position. And so it's not just he's holding onto the beard, but the kind of little hooves are sort of, against the front hooves against the shoulders. Yeah. And the little goat has got this great beatific smile on her face. And you think, this is something really, this is more extraordinary than what you think it is. This is consensual bestiality in the missionary position, done actually, because somebody, these Romans were clever enough to know what they were doing on this, and this is, actually, it's found in the garden of a great Roman villa owned, as we know, by an Epicurean philosopher, because we found hundreds and hundreds of papyrus rolls of Epicurean philosophy. Now, Epicurean philosophy had one central question to it, which is, what is pleasure? Right? Now, at some point, there's a really big joke here, isn't there? Because in the garden of the house of the man who's really thinking about what pleasure is, we've sort of now defined pleasure as shagging a goat in the missionary position, with smiles all round,
Are most archaeologists kind of getting into it in the hope of finding some ancient pornography that they can... Is that the one? Go, yeah, we found another one. He's doing a goat. Someone must have posed for this. It's kind of like, they really thought it through.
No goats were killed in the making of this sculpture.
I'm not sure about that. Well, it's very well worth going having a look if you want to see that. I've got last week I spoke to Stephen Fry, and I had questions from Ben Evans, the son of Chris Evans. Not that one. No, not the one from the Avengers. The guy who directs then works for Go Faster Stripe and owns Go Faster Stripe. I should point out that Ben Evans, he did ask the question, got the amazing response from Stephen Fry, though his whole class had put these questions together. He wanted to make it clear. Now he's in he got in the paper, in the South Wales local paper. It's pointless, no one can read it, but it's kind of good. So he's asked him and his classmates have asked some questions. Sadie Evans asked, I'm guessing some kind of relation to Ben Evans. It might not be, it's Wales, isn't it? So there we go. What is I hate you in Latin? I want to say it to my brother. That is the question for you.
Phew. I can answer that one.
Yeah.
Usually when people say, what is something in Latin, you think, oh, God, I can't remember the word. This is simple.
Yeah.
It is te odi.
Te odi. That sounds quite good. It's like Toady from Neighbours.
Te odi. Yeah.
Was a clever joke in Neighbours? They just hated that. He was a hateful guy, wasn't he? Rebecca, what was his name? Jared Rebecca. Fucking hell, how did I remember that? Toadfish, Jared Rebecca.
Hope that goes round South Wales and gets into the paper.
Toady. So yeah, there you go. So that hasn't seemed to got us in the papers this time. Well, I'm guessing. We'll see. There are a couple more questions. Oh, no. I'll ask Ben Evans one. What do you think is the most innovative thing the Romans came up with or did after the thing with the goat?
The pan on the goat. Well, you can also see this in the British Museum, actually. Oh, yeah. It's a bit more of a plug for the British Museum.
You don't get any of the money from the British Museum, do you? Do they let you keep some? I'd like to go. They should once a year. They should let everyone go around and take one thing home with them. That's what. If you're a member, you can have one thing.
When I was on Desert Island Discs, and they asked what your luxury was going to be, yeah. I chose the Elgin marbles. But no, if you really want real, intriguing and pointless innovation, then I think the prize has to go to the dormouse fattener, right?
Oh, yes.
Now, in the British Museum, there's this great object, great sort of pot about, a couple of foot high. And it really is connected with the supposed Roman habit of eating dormice as a delicacy. And what this pot is a place for keeping them and fattening them up before they get on the table. And from the outside, it looks completely normal, except it's got lots of little holes in it, which is to bring the air in. See, Rich has got it here, But inside, so most people will go at the exhibition, they will not give this pot a second look, but it really is worth it because it's got a whole load of rungs around the inside, and it's got two little feeding dishes at the top. And you have to imagine that dormice are not stupid, so that without a top they would have escaped. There was a little lid to go on, and the idea is that you put the dormice in there, you give them their exercise runs, and then you fill up the little food trays with grapes or something, or whatever ancient dormice ate, and you wait till they're fat enough to eat. And what I think is great about that is it's, people think about the Romans as being fantastically sensible, and there's kind of bridges and hypercourses and engineering and roads. Actually, where quite a lot of that ingenuity is going is into something that's completely bonkers as a dormouse fattener. And, the idea that we can now see it in London temporarily, there's very, very few of these dormouse fatteners survive. They're very rare objects, extremely precious. But they do, they kind of hit Roman ingenuity on the head, I think.
Ben Evans has lost it, I tell you. He was much better last. I'm going to ask my own questions from now on. There is quite a lot of cock-based stuff. I won't go on too much about cock-based stuff, but my last show, Talking Cock, did reference something from Pompeii, because there's penises all over the place in Pompeii. There's a thing saying hic habitat felicitas, with a big penis, which means here lives happiness.
And what's happiness but a warm willy kind of stuff.
Exactly.
That's basically.
You can't spell happiness without penis, can you? That's what I say. So that features in my show. There's phallus lamps. There's phallus lamps that are like you can light your way with a penis. And what I quite like is the phallus itself also has its own penis as well. So it's a phallus, and then it's got a little penis. Like that's how phalluses were created. There are presumably some giant muffs walking around as well.
Tail? It's got a tail as a phallus as well. Right. So it's a phallus with a phallus penis and a phallus tail, and it's also got wings.
Yes, it has got wings.
So it can fly, and it's got bells on. This is not a joke.
Why were they so obsessed? I mean, it's pathetic. Why were they so obsessed with penises in ancient Rome? How do you think I would have got? I could have been the biggest star. No. Be like, yes, Richard, remember Stuart Lee, the bloke who doesn't do any jokes about penises? And Richard Herring. What was all the cocks about? Because I've noticed as well, the Caecilius, who I was, like with many people my age who studied Latin will remember Caecilius because he was in the books Caecilius est in Atrium, etc. But Artrio. I got 100% on my Latin exam, and the only mistake I made was I'd spelt there wrong in one of the translations. I put Their. So I used to be very good at it, but then I let it go. But I've just noticed that the Caecilius is like a bust of his head, and then it's like a big block, and then there's a little willy coming out the block of stone. Like a bronze willy or something.
I mean, those people who've done the Cambridge Latin course will have, like you, Richard, got to know Caecilius from book one. And on the front cover of the Cambridge Latin course, book one, you have got a picture of this bronze bust of Caecilius. Yeah. What the kind of prudes the Cambridge Latin course didn't show you is exactly what you saw, which is what happens underneath this rather elegant bronze bust. It's like got a great marble shaft, if we can call it that, with his name written on it. And the only other thing is some, what we politely call some bronze genitalia. And it's, for me, it absolutely hits the nail on the head about the Romans being, A, sort of just like us, and B, being completely on another planet. Because what you've got here is the idea that if you want to sum up this... Actually, the guy's a banker. He's a Pompeian banker. If you want to sum up the Pompeian banker, you have this other kind of sort of ruggedly realistic face with wart. Then you have nothing else but this kind of plank in marble, and then you have his willy. And it's the idea that somehow... You're
going to have to get a video this week.
That is what you are all about. And in fact, in some ways, the Romans actually got it right, I think, in a way, for men. Don't you think?
We're obsessed with willies. I'm wondering if it's just like the bankers, maybe they screwed up as badly as they did with us, and then someone just went around sticking cocks all over their statues as a kind of statement. They've destroyed the economy.
Give them a willy. I'm afraid it was a proud boast. And they're everywhere.
It's not that. It's a tiny little thing. It's not that proud. It's like a little tiny little boy's winky he's got in bronze. It's not that. It's not proud.
He's not using it. It's just shitty. I mean,
but at least make it like put a big one on there. Put some bells on it.
the one I like. There's another wonderful willy with bells on it, which sadly has not come to the British Museum, but it shows you that the Romans were a bit more kind of reflective about willy power than we think, because what it is a sort of pygmy. And he's got this vast cock coming out of him and bells all over everywhere. The end of the cock is turning into a dog or possibly a wolf. And it's turning back to, you see, this is how I know they did try to do what you asked me. So it's turning back to him. And in his hand, he has a kind of knife, and he is trying to cut it off.
Yeah.
Now, people say, look, willies with bells on is one thing. The idea of a kind of slightly hunchbacked pygmy trying to amputate his own willy, which is in the process of turning into an animal, is a stage further.
Yeah. It's like a werecock. So
that's a good idea. That's a great idea. And
we've all worried about that, right, eh? We're going to, from now on, you're going to wake up and you didn't think you would come to this podcast with Mary Beard and now be scared of your own penis consuming you, did you? You will be now. Look, he's worried about it. Look how worried he is. It's very so. This is a non-cock-based question about Pompeii. Pompeii is my well, it is really. Pompeii is my absolute favourite place in the world. I went to it when I was 18 and I looked around and I'm kind of disappointed to discover it has all been rebuilt and stuff. It was bombed during the war, and also anyway, of course, it all fell down. I kind of believed it was all just as it was, but it's all showbiz. But what I don't understand is how you've got like Pompeii, which is quite a big city, and yet you don't really know where most Romans slept. Is that right?
That's true.
So where did they sleep, and why? How can you not know where they slept?
Well, sadly, they don't appear to have bedrooms,
right?
Or beds, for that matter. I mean, if you want to know, if you go into a modern house and you want to say how many people lived here and, where did they spend the night, we'd know pretty roughly what the options were. I mean, they might be, might be a kind of, a crappy student bedsit, so the sofa might, in some cases, double for the bed. But otherwise, we'd be going upstairs and the bedrooms would be painted a different colour and they'd have beds in them and you'd only be there at night. Pompeii, it's absolutely clear that if you're rich, let's not forget, this is in parentheses, the poor slept anywhere they could. But if you're rich, you don't have designated sleeping areas.
Right.
So you have what's called a cubiculum, a cubicle, but that's got a sofa in it. It's got a sofa bed, and it's where you do rather secret business. It's where you might entertain your illicit lover in the afternoon. It's where you might sleep in the evening. It's where you might sign your will. It's a kind of private-ish sort of space. Now, you go to the Pompeian furniture store, which there is one, in fact, it's at Herculaneum, a great store of furniture, carbonised wooden furniture. There is one wooden cradle that is in the British Museum exhibition. But otherwise, there are things that you can lie down on, but you don't know if they're sort of beds. There's no double beds. And there are things that look like sofas, there are things that look like you might recline to eat on them, and there are things where you might have slept. But part of the point is that, of course, we don't really know, and this is even worse, I guess, mostly we don't know what happened upstairs in a Pompeian house. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't seem to be very likely that there were loads of bedrooms upstairs. It doesn't seem to be very likely. But, these houses, as you say, they were destroyed by a volcano. They were bombed by the British in 1943 to smithereens. Over 60, probably 90 different hits on Pompeii, because we thought the Germans were hiding out there.
Also, the ghosts of the ancient Italians might come up and join in the war effort. So
that's right. They want to get rid of them entirely.
Destroy them all.
That's right. And so, when people go into these houses and you still hear them say, "God, isn't that amazing? Even the ceilings still survive." You have to say, "Sorry, sunshine. That was a Kirker 1950." We can see there were upper floors because there's stairs going up, and they presumably went up to something. But whether that's where a lot of the slaves slept in the attic, who knows? So, I think one of the big questions, if I was advising someone on a new doctoral dissertation subject, where did the Romans sleep, would be quite a good one.
Good, so you don't know the answer.
No.
That's the only reason I got you on, because I couldn't work that out and couldn't find out. This is quite a disturbing thing. This is about Pompeii. Then we'll move on from Pompeii after this. And this is about penises, but this is about a modern-day penis.
I said you'd be coming back.
But this is one of the most disturbing things that I found on the Talking Cock questionnaire. That there was a man, I said, where have you put your penis for fun? It was one of the questions on the Talking Cock questionnaire. And there was a man who obviously got off on displaying his penis in various... like in churches and big cathedrals and works of art, and then the last one he said he put his penis in the plaster cast hand of one of the victims of Pompeii. Do you think that's disrespectful? Because I should explain that they know they've got all these. There were gaps in the ash basically when they came to excavate, and if you fill them with plaster, you find out what was there, and some of them are loads of bread and animals, and some of them are people going, no, I'm being hit by a volcano. So that's quite a good shape to put get your car. But it isn't actually their hand. Their hand's disintegrated. It's just the space where their hand once was. I found that quite disturbing. What do you think? That he had to move on because he was in an area he shouldn't have been in. Literally. Does that make you look at those? Because that's an actual the place where a person died. I think that's not right, is it?
Has he written about it apart from on your question?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's out there somewhere.
Because it's very interesting, and but there's a long history to this. Particularly the ancients, Romans, Greeks. They, of course, they didn't know about doing it with plaster casts of dead bodies.
Yeah.
But they knew damn well that people got off on sculptures, which is almost the same.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful stories about the most famous sculptor of Aphrodite the whole world had ever seen. Goddess of love on the island of... No, it's not an island. In the town of Knidos, in what's now modern Turkey. Absolutely fantastic, famous sculpture of Aphrodite. And a guy falls in love with it. Absolutely falls in love with it. And so he manages, they lock the temple up at night, and he manages to get locked in with her. And the guards go away. So he does what he always wanted to do. He takes her from behind. And in fact, he took her from behind, because if you go and look, the original is, I'm afraid, sadly destroyed, not by this man. Then we have lots of copies of it. And what ancients said is that if you go and look, you could see the little stain on the marble where he'd left the trace of having his wicked way with her. But...
And the kind of boring tool he presumably had to use to create...
He got his comeuppance because... He went completely bonkers once he'd done it, and he went and threw himself off a cliff. But
imagine what happened to the bloke who did that to the pan having sex with a goat.
Hundreds of years later, Romans were going as tourists to the Temple of Aphrodite on Knidos, going to look for that stain where the guy had done his business.
Wow.
So, so your guy who wants to put his cock in the hands of casts,
that is still worse, I think.
There's a long
at least
history.
the statue was never actually a human being. It's just a representation.
Well, she was a goddess, for God's sake.
Well, if you had to have sex with a Roman god, which one would you have sex with? It's classy, isn't it? It's not a lot classier.
Well, I think it would all have been pretty brutal. I think part of the joke about putting Pan in the missionary position is that no bona fide Roman god did anything as wimpish as the missionary position. I think it was they were always disguised as bulls and or showers of rain and gold. Showers of gold and taking innocent young ladies. So I don't know. I think I'd take Pan because at least you'd know where you were with him. I mean, you know, what you see is what you get. That's it. You know, Jupiter. Well, you wouldn't know if the bull that you were kind of charmingly stroking in the nearby field was suddenly going to whisk you away to his love nest. So it's all a bit deceptive. No, I think Pan is straight up and down sex.
Good. And you might get goat involved. Right, we'll move on. We'll move on to... well, actually, you met the Queen this week.
I did meet the Queen.
How did that go?
Well, it was very moving. And
for her.
I don't know. How could you tell? I don't know. But it was very funny for me because I'm a basic Republican, basic Republican. And I went to the opening of the BBC new HQ, which looks absolutely gorgeous from the outside, absolutely gorgeous. And I thought, oh God, I got an invite. I'm marking a hell of a lot of exams this week. I'm so knackered. Why don't I go, right? So I turn up at the BBC HQ with my little invite. I hadn't thought a minute about it really, apart from that I was going to go, and there'd no doubt be a bit of a nice piss up, and it'd be fun, it'd be different. And I knew that something different was going to happen when, as soon as I walked into the BBC door, a very nice girl came up and said, Mary, come to the green room. And I thought, why do I need to go to the green room? And then she said, you do know, don't you, that you're in the line-up to meet the Queen? And I thought, no, but I thought I'd better say yes, because it would look a bit silly to say no. And then I thought, God, I'm glad I didn't know, because otherwise I'd have spent ages deciding what shoes to put on, and I'd have washed my hair and done a lot of other things that even Republicans do when they meet the Queen, because they suddenly get a kind of touch of nervousness. And it was great. We were in a really motley crew lineup, which included me, Bruce Forsyth, David Dimbleby, Jenny Agutter, Claudia Winkleman, and Tess Daly. So it was the Strictly team, and there was it was meant to represent the different faces of BBC telly.
The three different faces, dancing,
pointy head Romans,
and
news.
Time.
That's right. And of course, what really happens is that it's as I said on my blog, actually, it's a bit like getting stuck in a lift with people. That although there's no other circumstance in which I would have been for almost 2 hours in the company of Bruce Forsyth, except the possibility of it being a lift, and so it becomes terribly, terribly memorable. It becomes really, because you think this is just weird. I'm supposed to be marking exam questions about Rome's battle with Carthage, and here I am sitting in the bowels of the BBC with Bruce Forsyth and his much younger wife, and so
not that much younger. All right, it's not so far.
Oh no, sorry.
Bruce is fine. It's one of the rare.
As you can see, that's the news story. Mary Beard accuses Bruce Forsyth.
Yeah, don't say it.
But there is something really funny, because you're sitting there, all you're doing is waiting for this charming old lady, aged 87, who's probably thinking about what's happening to her poor old husband, to walk along, and she does her bit wonderfully, and she holds out this beautifully gloved hand, and you take it and you think, I must not curtsy. Don't curtsy, Beard. Otherwise you're really letting the side down. And you think, you come away and all your reactions are pre-programmed. All the republicanism goes out the window. And you think, oh God, she was so nice, and didn't she look small, and all those other things that you think. So it was strangely moving, and it was strangely revealing of one's own hypocrisy, I think.
Have you got an OBE though? You've got an OBE as well, have you?
I have.
That's not very Republican, is it?
That's not very Republican. And I've got an excuse for that one too. I've got an excuse. I did actually sit and think, should I do this? Order the British Empire. No, I mean, that's not just republicanism. That's kind of imperialism too, kind of fighting here. And I said to a friend of mine who's got something much grander than that, I said, look, I'm thinking of turning this down. And he said, if you can turn it down, forget about it, and never get to be the kind of person who, at the end of the party, after too much Pinot Grigio, says, well, of course, I turned an OBE down, then turn it down. But if you get a blab, accept it, because it's easier to forget about it that way. How about that?
Not a good enough excuse.
Okay. I would have become the refuse. I mean, actually refusing an OBE isn't that great, is it? I mean, refusing, something really, refusing a peerage.
You could have punched the Queen in the face this week. That would have been just gone, yes, man, poof.
And of course,
that would have been fantastic.
I haven't gone to get it yet.
Okay.
The same thing will happen, and I shall. I've got the instructions, and I shall put my fascinator on. I haven't had a fascinator before, but it seems better than a hat. And I shall go, part of me thinking, God, this is a load of flummery deference. Oh, I hate it. It's like watching the BBC's 7-hour coronation broadcast from 1953, with them all saying, and there's the princesses of the blood royal, etc., coming out. And you think, oh, I'm going mad to listen to this. And then you think, oh God, doesn't he look nice? And in the case of the 53, isn't that, wasn't the Queen of Tonga great? And so, and I think it's either hypocrisy or it's kind of honesty on my part. And I like to think of it as honesty.
Well, I can't tell you whether I've been offered one or not, because
after I've said that, you certainly can't.
No. I kind of think it's unlikely. Especially now I've just said I'd punch the Queen in the face. I'll accept it. Boom, hey.
Look, if they can offer one to me, mate, they can certainly offer one to you.
They gave one to Jonathan Ross. He was the first OBE we had on. I can believe they gave it to Jonathan Ross. If Jonathan Ross can get one,
anybody.
What's the point? What's the point in having it? So look, I want to talk to you a bit about all the kind of furore about you daring to go on TV looking like you look. That's a terrible, daring thing. Well, it kind of it's sort of unbelievable, actually. I'm very cross about everything that happened. It sort of started with Anus Arsehole Gill, that's what the AA stands for. The Gill stands for Gash Intercourse Labia Lavatory. That's what it stands. Who I think was critical of the idea that anyone could go on TV with grey hair or not they have to look in a certain way. Now, what makes me very angry about it is that, like, in the 1970s, if you go back and look at programmes there, they had the most freakish-looking people you've ever seen, and just ridiculous, barely human being. Or they'd be academics and, really strange guys on. And if someone came on TV to present like a serious programme and they were good-looking, everyone would laugh, going, this is pathetic. They've just put a pretty person who doesn't know what they're doing in order to, like a model-looking person to do this. And that would be the joke. And it's turned around to such an extent that an expert on a subject can't go on TV without being criticised for the way that they choose to look, which is kind of outrageous.
No, it was extraordinary. Yeah. And, I was actually giving a lecture in America when this review of Gill came out, and Gill got form where I was concerned, so I knew it was going to be hostile. And I remember sitting in the hotel room waiting to be able to get it online. And when it said she looks as if she should be on the Undateables, I thought, Christ,
He is a very good-looking man, though. I have to say, he sets the standard very high on good looks, so it's it's fair enough.
It's that sort of kind of orange skin that he has that is so. I mean, I should
really not be arguing against this, because obviously it's in my interest that extremely good-looking people get to go on TV. But I'm too good-looking to go on TV. That's the reason I'm not on. Actually, I'm too sexy to go on TV. When he shot a baboon, AA Gill, to find out what it feels like to kill a man, which is kind of weird on two levels, because A, you're killing a primate, not a man anyway, and B, why do you want to find out? It's like when Nick Ross says, if someone showed me some child pornography, I'd have a look just to see what all the fuss was about. That's what he says. It's the same thing as that, isn't it? Yeah, I'd love to know what it's like to kill a human being. I'd imagine it's pretty horrible. So he's a horrible man, but you'd expect better.
Put him with Pan and the Goat, really, I think, would be quite good. You'd
expect better of a journalist, but a few journalists joined on that kind of bandwagon, and then you got into when you're on Question Time, there was a lot of you googled yourself presumably to find this.
There's two stages to this. First of all, Gill actually gets. I was quite encouraged because most of the country or at least the country that kind of put its head above the parapet, said Gill was absolutely bloody stupid. And I thought it was really great. There was a little article in the Daily Mail, and I thought the Daily Mail might have really come out the other way. But, for once, under the line on the internet version, there were loads of people saying, how stupid, we want to see people like Beard on the telly. God knows what they think of my political views, but as far as I looked, it was fine. And I thought, well, look, what's going on here is actually most of these readers look like me. And most women of 58 without a lot of treatment look more or less like me. And most women over the age of 50 have grey hair. Get it? And that seemed, that seemed quite good, and everything went quiet for a bit. And then there was, you reach after the Question Time appearance. There was this kind of great leap forward in misogynistic terms, because in the end I now look at Gill and I think he was a sort of silly boy, and I'd like to take him out to lunch and put him right and smack his bottom and say, oh look, just think, just what does David Starkey look like, and why does that not matter? But at least I now think, well, look, Gill, silly boy, he signs the articles, you know who he is. If you want to go round and say, look, mate, you shouldn't do that, you know where he lives.
Yeah. I don't know where he lives. Mary's found out, though. Fuck, I'd be terrified to be A.A. Gill.
When you get to mad internet trolling, you get to a whole, it's 50 steps beyond Gill in terms of, extraordinary misogyny. And I think what's very odd about the Question Time backlash was quite how difficult it is to get across to people what these internet trollers, against me and against a lot of other people on the site, and don't start me off, what they were actually saying, because you can't go on the BBC and say what they said.
Yeah.
So you have to say, things, terribly periphrastic things like, he talked about the size of my private parts, and actually is saying, you've got a cunt the size of a marrow or whatever. Now, if you try to do that, even on Woman's Hour, they say, well, do you think we could put it slightly differently? And if I hadn't had my own blog, I couldn't even have got it into a newspaper. Luckily, I have a blog on the Times Literary Supplement site, which nobody really monitors. So they didn't notice that I'd put on it a picture from this website of my face with labia superimposed. Because, I've got a very sort of modest little blog which talks usually about classical things and, Don's life. And they're not looking for kind of nasty bits of porn on it. And actually loads of people went to it and they saw the kind of stuff that this is. And I suddenly realised that, I'm not a great sort of admirer of Louise Mensch. But when she started moaning about what she got on the web, I had found myself thinking, oh God, look, darling, if you put yourself about and you look like that, then you've got to take the rough with the smooth. And now I see that what Mensch was presumably getting was much the same kind of really, vile stuff.
Yeah.
And it was, in a funny way, it was terribly easy to combat it because it was so obvious what you should do. I mean, there were some people, and there still are people, who say, look, if you get really, really, really attacked on the internet, then just shut the fuck up, basically, because it'll only draw attention to it if you open your mouth. But I think, women have been told to shut the fuck up about what people say of them, for thousands of years. And it was just so easy to say, and in some ways easier if you're my age than if you're 25, because, some young women are getting this, a lot of young women are getting this too, to say, look, can we please just hang on a minute and can somebody explain to me why the putative size of my vagina might have anything whatsoever to do with my views on immigration. It just doesn't.
No, well,
it's a no-brainer.
No, well, I think I might. I think at the time I was on Twitter with you, and I thought I was admiring what you're doing, but I was thinking, God, this could really. I was one of those people thinking this could just be terrible. Maybe you should shut up about it. But then actually, it was kind of amazing because you pushed, and I always kind of try and rile these people a bit more myself, but I never get anything. I never get anything as bad as that. But it was incredible that it did create enough of a fuss to get the site shut down, and that doesn't stop the problem obviously in the long term, but it is an amazing thing you did. It was a very important thing to do, and I think it's the same. In the 1970s, people were allowed to be racist and would have done, if they'd had the internet, there would have been awful racial things put up that people wouldn't accept now. So it is a very important battle to fight. So it's kind of amazing that you managed to defeat those awful idiots. But there we go. I
also got a long letter of apology from the guy who ran the site.
Oh, did you?
How sincere I don't know, but
yeah.
It made me feel it was good for me because I don't mind talking about it now, but it did start. Being a sort of poster girl of troll victims over 50 got to be a bit time consuming for a while, and actually not just the site coming down, but also the apology saying, I am sorry, this was unacceptable.
Yeah.
Allowed me to say to people, okay, that we're moving on now, folks. Sure. And to kind of claim some sort of, I'm going to say the word closure, but I could have gone on talking about trolling for the rest of my life. And how I beat them, and it was good to being given, by, as I say, I don't know if it's a sincere letter or not, but a way out of that. And so now when I talk about it, it's in the, it's not me now, it's in the past. I'm sure there are people, saying completely ghastly things about me on the web, and people are going to say ghastly things about people on the web, and as long as they got the grace in the end to apologise, maybe that's, I've said stupid things on Twitter,
I've never done that.
Not like you, and you just got to learn to say, sorry, chaps, I shouldn't have said that.
Well, freedom of speech is all good and well and good, but sometimes you just have to think about whether something's worth saying. Just because you're allowed to say it doesn't mean you should. But let's move on and ask a very important question that I mustn't let you go without answering. If you had to choose between having a hand made out of ham...
Oh, God, I read about this question. I should have prepared.
You should be very well prepared.
I should have prepared the answer. I didn't think you'd be so predictable as to do it.
You don't know me very well. I'm going to throw in a curveball. I'm not. It's an important question. It's a perfect question. I tried to mess around with it. You can't mess around with it. You've either got a hand made out of ham or an armpit that dispenses sun cream. Enough sun cream to cater for you and maybe one member of your family.
For eternity?
For the year. Well, yeah, for eternity, for the year. So you get you through a year and then there'd be another supply the next year. But you couldn't go, opening up a sun cream factory and just filling up bottles. So the hand... You can eat the ham, but the hand of ham, but it'll grow back, but it'll take about a month if you ate the whole thing, so it's like a snack. But you can nibble at it, just nibble a bit of it, and then it would grow back reasonably quickly. Which of those two things would you prefer, the classicist Mary Beard?
Well, as a classicist, this is obviously a professional answer. We classicists have partly become classicists because unless we are so unfortunate as to work on Roman Britain or Roman Germany, it does tend to take us to sunny Mediterranean climes, doesn't it?
Yeah, so the ham hand, you've got the ham hand. to chew on while it was sunny. And that's the answer to that. No, sorry, carry on.
So So I think we'll take the sun cream as... it's two things. For me, it signals work. It signals tramping around the ruins of Pompeii, getting a bit hot, and then looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking, God, I wish I had a bit of sunscreen. It would have been a bit better. But it also is a kind of... It's that image of something that I never do, but I always I close my eyes and I think of my dream holiday. And my dream holiday is nowhere near a sodding ruin, I have to tell you. My dream holiday is a lovely swimming pool in a discreetly upmarket hotel, very discreet, with the Camparis or the Negronis at hand and the blissful sun. Now, I never do this, but somehow the sun cream would kind of make that seem a more urgent possibility.
Also, if you were doing archaeology and stuff with a ham hand, it would get all dirt and stuff on it. Coprolites you'd get on it, wouldn't you? That would be nice.
Oh, worse than coprolites.
Coprolites. So there aren't archaeologists who just
study ancient shit.
Yeah, just...
Yes, they study ancient
coprolite analysts.
Yes. In fact, one of them, the biggest advances recently in the study of Herculaneum has been the intimate analysis of the contents of a Herculaneum sewer. I mean, quite literally, not just a sewer, not a kind of, dirty rainwater, but the effluent from a multi-storey block's loos coming down over about, no doubt, 10 years. From which, let me tell you, we can 100% certainly say that although everybody always says that the Romans wiped their bums with sponges on sticks, in the sewer there is no sign of a sponge. There is lots and lots of rag bits. So I think we have to assume that the Romans sometimes used sponges on sticks, but
maybe
also
they just
used
kept
rags.
Maybe they just kept it by the toilet, just rinsed it out in the bowl, and then just reused it.
But some bit of sponge would have gone down the loo, wouldn't it? Especially natural sponge, for God's sake.
And there's another important emergency question. I think you might, because you are hanging around in spooky places a lot. Have you ever seen a ghost when you've been? Anywhere, but in Pompeii.
You?
No, because they don't exist. But have you? And that's not the question, is it? It's have you ever seen one? That's the question.
I asked my son what to say to that question, and I've just given the answer. Have you? When you've seen a ghost, mate, I'll come and tell you about mine.
All right. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot when you've been around? These are the emergency. I ask everyone this. It's an emergency question. There's no need, but I just thought if you had, that might get us in the papers again. It's really on the news again.
If I were to say yes, would that get in the news?
If you had any photographic evidence.
Well, you never do you?
It may be in Pompeii. Is there any large footprints in Pompeii that could have been a Sasquatch of some kind?
Well, there always is. There always is. But you'd have to be barking to believe it. But there always is.
Right. Well, I think we are nearly at the end of our fantastic conversation. No. What have you got? What have you got coming up? Doing another book?
I am doing a book. I'm just about finished a book on Roman laughter.
Wow. What's the best Roman joke that you know?
This is going to be deeply disappointing.
It's got to be really good because we're closing now, so this has got to be something that'll make... It's got to be bigger than the things about saying cunt
I
on
will
them
tell
down.
you one Roman joke which is not bad.
Okay.
Right? It's a man goes and it was going to buy some honey. He sees a man selling honey in the market, and he goes over and says, "Oh, that looks like good honey. Can I taste it?" And the guy says, "Oh, yes." He says, "God, that's really good honey. I'll take that." And the guy who's selling it says, "Well, it is really good honey. It tastes good, and I wouldn't be selling it if that mouse hadn't gone and died in it." Tough crowd. That would have killed in ancient Rome.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the fantastic Mary Beard. Thank you. We'll be back in about 20 minutes with John Lloyd. Thank you very much. How'd you like them sky potatoes? That is it for this week. Hope you enjoyed that. We're back next week with another retro Leicester. And do come and see me on tour, richardherring.com/LOTDS/tour. Do buy a badge. gofosterstrike.com/badges. If you come and see Lord of the Dance Settee on tour, then with someone who's new, it's a good way to find out whether your relationship's going to last. I'm sort of the acid test. It's good to get it over with straight away. Rip that band-aid off, come for a date. If they don't like it, then you know they're not for you, unless you don't like it as well, in which case you're perfectly matched. So if you like me, come to my tour, bring a stranger, and even if it's not a date, if they really love it, who knows what might happen. Bring your best friend. You might find out there's been feelings bubbling under there for a while. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again next time here on the Richard Herring channel. Yeah, what's up, dudes? I'm from East 17 and cool. Oh no, I've got to hurt myself.